Before we start this video, a large thank you to Alamakis for their support this week on Patreon. I hope you enjoy the video, my friend. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner for their continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. As always, it is greatly and sincerely appreciated. I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, quick note before you start, please update Unity if you're using a version that is past 2017, as they do have a security issue. Okay, now on with the video. We're going to make some UI today for our project for the weapon upgrade manager. So I'm actually just going to duplicate the equipment manager because we can yoink a lot of stuff from this. And we're going to make it very rudimentary at the start, and we can kind of layer on some polish after we know everything is working, kind of has some functionality down. So let's go and turn on the menu option here, and I'm going to just eradicate the armor, projectiles, and quick slots area, but we're going to keep the right and left weapons because we can use this again. So if you don't remember, our equipment manager basically pops up some icons when we open it up to show what we have equipped in each slot. And we're going to make it so you can upgrade any weapon that you're currently holding in your left or right hand. So for that very reason, we can go ahead and reuse this logic. So I have the right and left weapons here, and I'm going to duplicate one of these columns, and I'm going to make a column called cost. And I'm just going to fill this not with buttons, I can delete that, rather materials. But this is going to show when you're hovering over a weapon, basically how much it costs to upgrade that weapon. And in the future too, we'll add it so it highlights the name of the weapon that you're hovering over, etc., etc. So basically, we're going to have a materials that you have, and then the materials that you need, as well as the title, just generally speaking, that this is materials. Much like we have right weapons, left weapons, this will be materials. So in here, again, I'm going to do this very quickly, try to keep it very rudimentary as possible, get to the actual logic. This is not going to look pretty. We're going to say cost, and I'm just going to type this in for now, 0 times whatever you want to call it. I'll call it upgrade stone to keep it as generic as possible. Obviously, you probably got a creative name for yours, or you have some kind of whimsical thing that goes along with this, but for now, I'm just going to call it upgrade stone. I'm going to center this by putting a vertical layout group here, and I'm going to change this to current materials and required materials. As I said, I know I'm going quite fast, so feel free to slow this down and rewatch this, but I'm going to try to get to the actual bit where we do some programming. So current 0 times upgrade stone, cost 0 times upgrade stone. Cool. All right, so this is going to change in the future when we hover over the weapon, depending on the cost, and I'll just put the title down here as well. And you know what, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Right now it's kind of basically the perfect size for all of these text fields. It looks a little bit crammed, so I'll do this real quick. Alright, looks good. Now I'm going to go to the main title here, and I'm just going to size all this down, or rather the main layout group, and I'm going to center it. Now why am I doing this? Well, I want to make an actual title for the menu that's outside of this main selection of what's going on. So ideally, like I do in Nephilim, I anchor the controls to the bottom, that's a guide. I anchor the actual title to the top, and I anchor the content to the center. So if you scale it up or scale it down, it should still work and flow nicely. So I'm just going to make a very rudimentary, using that word a lot in this video, title up here. And I'm just going to call this, well, let's anchor to the top. We can call it upgrade weapons. There we go. Pretty straightforward. All right, that's going to be good enough, I think. So now we can go ahead and make the manager for this. So let's keep the same trend we got going here. We have an equipment manager and a few other managers. Let's go ahead and make one for this, and we're going to basically make it so when we click these buttons here, it's going to open up a confirmation saying, do you want to upgrade your weapon? And from there you can confirm or cancel. So I'm going to go over to the weapon upgrade manager, and I'm going to say add component player UI weapon upgrade manager. And then I am going to open this up and delete the start and update functionality as is per tradition and drop in my namespace. Alright, after that, I'm just going to highlight this mono behavior, erase it, and we're going to say player UI menu to make it derived from the player UI menu to get the overrides. And now we can go over to our player UI equipment manager and yoink all of the images and the buttons for the weapons. Make sure to say using Unity Engine UI or it will complain. And now let's go over and yoink some other stuff like the current selected equipment slot. We can use this to not only get the weapon when we hover over slots, but also to go back to the previously selected button, which I believe we also had a function for in that other menu. We can yoink that as well. So because we're able to do this, we're obviously saving a lot of time having to think about this and type out these variables again, which is great. So reuse what you can whenever you can. On the open menu, I'm just going to basically yoink this toggle equipment buttons because we also can disable or enable the buttons. Why would we need to do that? Well, when you bring up the confirmation window where your options are confirm to upgrade your weapon or cancel, you don't want to let the player hit any other button or basically select any of the other buttons outside of that until they make a choice. The choice being, do you want to upgrade your weapon or do you not want to upgrade your weapon? So basically we do this we use this function then to disable all of the equipment slot buttons for your weapons so they can't select anything outside of that pop-up. And then when the pop-up is gone, we can just basically make it so they can select the buttons again as is normal. So let's also yoink this refresh equipment slot icons because this is going to basically make our weapon slot icons pop up when we open the menu. So we can minimize everything here. That's right weapon 1, 2, 3 and left weapon 1, 2, 3. And then we can erase the rest. I'm just going to scroll down here and make sure I'm not minimizing anything that's on a weapon. Okay, yeah, so anything from the head equipment down we can eradicate, as we don't need this. So I'm just going to quickly scroll up through all of this here and delete. Okay, cool. Now we can save that. Now we can call this when we open the menu. So let's override open menu. And that's going to open up our menu object on the base class that we can save as a variable here. And then we can do some other stuff too. So I'm just going to copy and paste this from the player equipment manager. And I'm going to erase those two. Keep toggle equipment buttons and refresh equipment slots. Cool, very good. All right, now down here on refresh menu, don't need that right now. What else do we need to get here? Save. I'm just going to minimize all this really fast. And right below selected slot, I'm going to make a header for temporary. And I'm going to make this so we can toggle the menu basically. I'm going to say delete later. We'll make a bool for open menu. So serialized field bool open menu is equal to false. And then let's make an update method. And we're going to say if open menu is false. And then we're going to call open menu. We can tie this later on to an interactable or the end of a conversation prompt or something, but just for iteration purposes and testing and basically creating logic, this is going to be a lot easier to do. So save that. Now go to the player UI prefab, drag in your menu object here, and also drag in all of the buttons and the images for the left and right weapons. So let's go to the right hand weapons. You can see here we have an item icon under each of these. I'm going to open up right hand weapon 0 and 1 and drag it into 1 and 2, and then 2 and drag it into 3. Obviously because 0 is equal to 1, 1 is equal to 2, and 2 is equal to 3. If that's confusing, you could change the name of these little prefabs here if you want, or the name of the variables. Okay, let's save that and let's go to the weapon upgrade manager, and I'm just going to go ahead here and disable the menu and save this. Now back into our player UI weapon manager script. Right here I have, or over on the player UI equipment manager, sorry, I'm going to copy the awake because I forgot to actually assign these buttons. So you can assign them in the inspector as a serializable field, or you can get them on awake by getting the basically the image that we've already assigned here and using get in parent. Make sure you say true so it searches inactive game objects. Now if I go into the project, start this up and open the menu, boom, there we go. And yes, the weapon icons are displayed. Cool, so far so good. So we have it loading the weapons in our hands. That's great. Now we have to make it do something when we click it or press a button on it or what have you. So public void upgrade weapon. And then we're going to say, actually let's say attempt to upgrade weapon first because the confirmation window. That's not supposed to be a bool. Don't know why I typed that, honestly. I'm going to blame the fact that I need another coffee. Public void attempt to upgrade weapon, and then public void upgrade weapons. So the first one is going to do a check. It's going to do a bunch of stuff. So we can write some pseudocode here. And as I think of these, I'm going to add these in. So I'm going to have to reorder them. 1, check for materials. So we'll do a materials check. And if you pass the materials check, cool, we're going to open a confirmation window. What happens if you don't pass the materials check? Well, we need to give the players some form of feedback. So play some kind of nasty sound effect, like you can't do that. You know, the generic like unable to process action sound. Or we could have a pop-up saying, hey, you don't have enough materials, but that should be evident because we have the materials count right below the weapon. What we could do is just make the text red if you don't have enough. So I'm going to say if fail, check, play a sound effect or some form of feedback. Like here's where you can get creative. Now let's make a comment below check for materials. As I said before, if the materials amount is less than the required amount, so if you have less than what is required, you can change your materials text color to red. That's a good indicator too. There's a lot of small things you can do that you probably don't notice when playing a game that really helps convey, hey, you can or can't do this. And somebody said to me in the past, and I can't recall who, a good UI often goes unnoticed. And that is true because you don't notice it when it's doing its job, but you notice it when it's not doing its job. All right, so let's make a few more comments here. Upgrade weapon, take the select weapon and +1 to its upgrade level. So that one's pretty standard. This is going to be like the final step or the final part in the process. So up here on attempt upgrade, stop another one. 3, check if the weapon is at max level. If it is, just you can send a message or change the text for required materials saying armament is fully upgraded, and then you can play that noise again where you can't proceed. There's a lot of different ways you can go about this, of course. I'm just throwing out some suggestions. I don't think I did it exactly like this in Nephilim. My menu's a bit different, but I can show an example of that at some point also if someone would like to see it. There's also probably one in the Discord somewhere. So we can also grade the weapon icons to if they're not upgradable. We can lower the alpha of the icon. So if you're hovering over it and you know it's not upgradable, we can just basically do a check and then change the alpha to like 0.1 or 0.2 to indicate, hey, you can't do this. All right, let's copy select equipment slot over there from the player UI equipment manager. And what does this do? Well, we're going to pass an int. It takes that int and then it changes the current selected slot to whatever that value is in the int from enum. And then we can take that current selected slot and we can just basically get a weapon using that. So let's inside select last selected equipment slot. Let's copy that and delete everything that's on the weapons. Again, I'm copying this from the player UI equipment manager. We can use this later to go back to the button we had last selected. And now let's go over to the project again, and I'm going to go to my search and say player UI. Now let's go to the player UI manager, prefab. Let's open it up. And now under the weapon upgrade manager, or sorry, the equipment manager first, if you click here, we go to the button, you can see we're doing a thing here on click where we're loading the equipment inventory. We don't need that, but what we need is this on select. We're selecting the equipment slot. So it's an event for on select. And by the way, if you want to use mouse, you want to use on pointer, enter, and exit. I won't go down that rabbit hole right now because I could literally do a whole video on how to set up UI for a mouse and gamepad at the same time. That's a pretty in-depth topic. So for now, we're going to keep it very simple. On select, we can select equipment slot, and we're going to say copy, so we can paste it. 0 is right weapon 1, 1 is right weapon 2, and 2 is right weapon 3, and then 3 is left weapon 1, 4 is left weapon 2, and 5 is left weapon 3. Now, why is it like this? And for those of you who don't remember, well, we're using this to get an enum by converting an int to an enum. If we go to the equipment type, you can see here we have a comment 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. So that's why those numbers work in the way they do, in case you forgot. All right, so under the selected slot, private weapon item, and I'm going to make this serializable probably so we can see if it's working. Current selected weapon. And right now, we're just going to do some simple logic here when we select the equipment slot. And depending on the current selected equipment slot, we're just going to use that to discern the weapon that we have selected. So if the equipment slot is right weapon on1, obviously we're going to grab the weapon in our inventory by saying the current selected weapon is equal to the player inventory weapons in right hand 0, because 0, position 0 in the array will be weapon 1. So we're going to get the player by saying player UI manager.instance.local player, and just do the same thing now for right weapon 2 and 3 and left weapon 1, 2, and 3. So copy paste, right weapon 01 becomes right weapon 02, weapons in right hand slots 0 becomes right hand weapon slots 1, and then do the same thing for the last right weapon. Copy all of that and change the keyword right to left for the other hand, and then you're good to go. So left, and don't forget to change the array too. So weapons in right hand slots becomes weapons in left hand slots. Okay, we're pretty much there. We need to actually add the upgrade level. Didn't do that. Whoops. If current selected weapon .item ID is equal to world item database .instance.unarmed item ID, we want to return, and we should probably put this on attempt to upgrade weapon. Now that I'm thinking about it, not the final step. That's my bad. So I'm going to make it pseudo code here for play some form of sound effect or feedback to let the player know that, hey, there's no weapon selected. Or if you want to tell them that the unarmed weapon is selected, if that's what you're going for, just say you can't upgrade that unless you want them to, in which case, then yeah, go for it. So I'm going to copy this right now and put it under the attempt to upgrade weapon. So let's open that up. And I'll put this right at the top. We'll say 0 because I don't have any numbers I can put in between here. So / comment 0, check for unarmed. Okay, because the no weapon, for those of you who aren't aware, in our game is technically still a weapon. It's unarmed. So you always have a weapon in your hand. If you have no weapon, it defaults to the unarmed weapon. So it's not actually possible right now to have no weapon in our character's hand. All right, let's make a header for menus. And let's make the confirmation object menu. So serialized field game object, confirm upgrade. All right, that looks good. And we're gonna call it confirm upgrade pop-up because it's a pop-up. And when we open the menu, you want to disable that right away. So if you leave the menu when that was open somehow, we want to reset the menu to its default form when you open it. And defaultly, this is not open until you select a weapon to upgrade. All right, right below, let's make a header. We're gonna call this confirm upgrade button. Now, why are we doing this? Well, we just want to select that button when we open up the menu. You could alternatively add select button on enable, that script that we made before, to the confirmation button. Either of these ways are fine. But whenever you open this menu, you want to select one of the two buttons. So if you're using a controller, you can navigate between them. Not too important right at this very moment because we can set all it up when all of the logic is done. But just because we have it here now, we can do that. So confirm upgrade pop-up dot set active true, confirm upgrade button dot select. All right, cool. So let's save that. Now we're not going to do a lot of these checks right now because we need to make sure that this works first and foremost. Then we can start layering on the other logic. So I'm going to go to my weapon upgrade manager and I'm going to drag in. Oh, we have to make the menu first, getting a bit ahead of myself. Let's right click anywhere in the menu. I'm going to put it outside of the layout group because I don't want it to get sorted. It would be jarring if this popped up and moved everything up or down. So I'm going to make it outside of the layout group and I'm going to just size it a reasonable size across this window. We'll say 400 by 225. And I'm going to save some time and copy the color of another window so it looks cohesive. And again, I'm not spending any time making this look pretty. This is going to be really probably horrid on the eyes. I call it Programmer UI, but it will get the job done and it will perform the task that is necessary, which is to upgrade your weapon. And I encourage you to take lots of time on your UI, make it look nice. I think I redid mine in Nephilim like a dozen times before I was happy with it. Now it sits somewhere I'm really liking it. So let's go ahead and add a horizontal layer group in here. Actually, let's remove it from there because I'm going to make a title first. I'm going to anchor the title at the top of this box. I'm going to call it upgrade. We can say upgrade weapon question mark because this is the confirmation window. This pops up when you select the weapon. Hey, are you sure you want to upgrade it? So let's just make this the size of the box like so. And let's drag it up here and let's anchor it to the top. So in the event that this window scales, it should stay in its proper position. Now we can make another box inside here, an empty game object first, and we can make it right to the bounds of that text box and the bottom of that box. And this is going to be what holds our confirmation and our cancel button. So we can add a horizontal layer group to this and anchor it to the bottom. All right, so let's go here, right click UI, add a button, text mesh bro, and then we can duplicate that button immediately. I'm going to call this one confirm. Let's actually change this layer group to middle center so it looks a bit more presentable. This one will be cancel. And now we can just make them look a bit nicer by filling in the text fields and the buttons and changing the colors. I'm going to make them dark and I'm going to make the text inside white because that is the current style of our UI and I find that to be not so eye-melting. All right, looks nice. Cool. Well, it looks like a programmer UI. I wouldn't say nice. Now let's make sure we have the highlighted and selected colors set to different colors so we know when we're highlighting or clicking them it's apparent. And now I'm going to change the alpha of this to something that's not quite opaque, but also not so transparent where it's clashing with the other UI behind it. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to resize this a bit more until I'm content with it and reseat this title, and that is as good as it's going to be unless I spend some time polishing it. So I'll center it now in the center of this menu, and now I can drag in this game object as the variable for confirm upgrade pop-up, and I can drag in the confirmation button as the button variable, and that's cool. Now we can untick this. It should be disabled by default. It only opens when you confirm a weapon upgrade. Not that it matters because, again, we disable when we open the menu, but just so it's set up nicely. Now, toggle your equipment buttons set to false when you upgrade a weapon or when you're opening the confirmation window. And then when you confirm in the confirmation window, you can reactivate them. So we can say toggle equipment buttons is equal to true. Now let's get the weapon in here. So we can say select last equipment slot too. I forgot about that. Yeah, so it'll go back to the button you last selected whenever you upgrade the weapon. So if you want to upgrade the same weapon again, it's just another tap and you're good. Okay, what's next? Take selected weapon and +1 to upgrade level. Alright, so let's get this as an int first. So we can do that by getting the upgrade level of the current selected weapon dot upgrade level. And now we can make a local variable. We can call this current upgrade level. And we can equate that to this enum, but we can get it as an int by opening up some brackets and saying int. And then all we got to do is say int plus equals 1 by saying current upgrade level plus equals 1. And then we pass that new upgrade level to the weapon, but we make it into an enum of type upgrade. So we can say current selected weapon upgrade level is equal to upgrade level, and we pass the integer upgrade level alongside it. Look at that, perfect. All right, let's save that. And we don't have the events on these buttons yet. So let's highlight them all at one time. And on click, we're gonna say Player UI Manager attempt to upgrade weapon. And let's save that in our prefab and also make sure we hide that menu. And I forgot to do my cancel and confirm buttons. So I'm gonna put in the text field. I think I have for cancel. Yes, I do. Actually, I don't want that as all caps. Let's put it back to lowercase. I don't think the rest of the UI is all caps. Now, on the confirm button, let's do an on-click event, and we're gonna make it upgrade the weapon. That's the final function we're calling there. And then on cancel, we could just make it reopen the menu, since the menu is so simple that reopening it will go right back to where we want it to anyway. Optionally, you could close the pop-up and make it go to the last button selected. That's entirely up to you. Save that. Now, if I test this, it will probably work. Let's just jump into the game and see. So starting up, boom, press start, load game, click on my character, load in, go to my weapon upgrade manager and tick this open menu box. There's no weapon selected, you can see. If I click this sword, though, or the shield, rather, do the shield, because the sword's on +5 already. Upgrade weapon, confirm, yes, 1. And then let's just go check it. It should be on +1 right now. Let's go. So, player, shield, yes, it's on upgrade level 1. Let's click it again. 2, 3, all right, perfect, cool. So we obviously have a lot to do this. Like, we have to close the window after you click upgrade. We have to do a bunch of checks. We have to make the currency, but that's in a pretty good spot right now. It works. It upgrades your weapon when you click the button. So we're going to continue to iterate on this in the next video by maybe adding some currency and looking over the checks, and we'll see how far we can get with it. And then we'll do some polish way towards the end. Now, that is all for me today, gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. A special thank you and shout out, obviously, to my patrons. It is because of you the series can exist at all, so you have my sincerest gratitude. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. I will see you all next week.